Let's just take a moment, take a breath. I don't know about you, but those songs they touch something. I don't know what it is. And I have a feeling I'm going to have some issues talking about this today. So bear with me if I get emotional because it's already happening. I'm just going to preface this with, I was telling Kathy this morning that I have 2.5 talks written for today. And I was struggling even at 10 o'clock with which one I was going to go with. And then I listened to that first song. And I knew it had to be this one. And I also know it's not going to be easy. So, but I guess I was taught that anything worthwhile is usually not very easy. So I'm just going to repeat a few words from that last song we heard because it leads right into what I want to talk about. So I wish somebody told me it's within me. Everything I need, it's within me. The power to succeed, it's within me. The faith to reach my dreams, it's within me. Do you know that? Do you really believe that? Everything you need, you already have. It's right here, right now, right where you are. Breathe that in and hold on to it as you listen to what I have to say. My topic for today is your secret power. This started out as a talk about the law of attraction and what it really is. Not what we see in constant advertisements, what we read in books, what we learn in classes, or what we even try to use ourselves sometimes. It's not about affirmations, visualizations, or the myriad of other things we're being sold or told. Not about the quotes from Ernest Holmes. It's not about the sayings you are told, such as there's a power for good and you can use it. Change your thinking, change your life. Life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it, and many more. I'm sure you could think of many other quotes that tell you there's a law of attraction and you can use it. The truth is, yes, there is. And yes, you can use it. But here's the thing. As Ernest Holmes says, everything originates in the one, comes from the same source and returns again to it. As God's thought makes worlds and peoples them with living things, so our thoughts make our world and peoples it with experience. By the activity of our thought, things come into our life, and we are limited only because we have not known the truth. We have thought that outside things controlled us, when all the time we have had that within, which could have changed everything. Now, as I said in the beginning, this was going to be a talk about the law of attraction. And it kind of is, but in a very roundabout way. And I have a whole nother talk on that plan for another time. What happened is on Wednesday night, I listened to an amazing talk by Reverend Julie Lake on grief and loss. And I know a few of you were on that talk, but it touched me so deeply that I was moved to talk about it again today. I was resistant because it touches something deep within me, obviously. God just kept saying, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And as I was listening to that talk, it occurred to me that everyone has experienced some sort of loss or grief in their life. And that our society is not geared to deal with grief or loss. Many times, people don't know what to say to you. Everyone says, I'm sorry for your loss. And what do you respond to that? Thank you. And then as we go on and it becomes a period of time, you're told you'll get over it. Or sometimes you're told when you fall into grief and start grieving and crying, you're just told buckle up. Or my very favorite is pull up your big girl panties and get on with your life. there's a little bit of truth in that, but the truth really is that grief and loss are traumas, and they need to be treated as such. We need to mourn our traumas in order to move through them, not get over them, but move through them. They are real. We need to accept our feelings as a part of the grieving process, to really feel them and to really experience the grief. Donald Anderson says that healthy are those who mourn. To deny grief is to deny a natural human function. Any event, any awareness that contains a sense of loss for you can and should be mourned. This doesn't mean a life of incessant sadness. It means being willing to admit to an honest feeling rather than always having to laugh off the pain. It's not only permissible to admit the sadness that accompanies any loss, it's the healthy option. It's the right thing to do. And it's the only way that we can incorporate that into our lives. Because that's what we do. We incorporate that loss, that trauma, that grief. It becomes a part of who we are. And most of you know the story of the life-changing event that I had last July. As a result of that, and a few other traumatic events in my life, I found out that I suffer from PTSD. I knew this when I passed an automobile accident with an ambulance and a fire truck and a smushed up car. And I had a severe panic attack. Now, I have never in my life had a panic attack. I could not breathe. And then I started all the classic things. My heart started to pound. I started to breathe really quick. I felt like I was going to pass out. Now, I was driving. So I'm thinking to myself, well, what do I do? And I'm going, of course, I call on God. God, I know I can get through this. I know I can get home. And fortunately, I wasn't that far from home. So I did. I drove, I got home, walked into the house, and I totally fell apart. I sobbed. I still couldn't catch my breath for quite a long time. I did all the stuff that I knew I was supposed to do. And I remember taking that breath, and I remember that I felt like I was in a fog once again. I felt overwhelmed, and I didn't know what to do. And once I got my voice back and once I could breathe, the first thing I did was call my practitioner. I always turn to my practitioner when I feel overwhelmed and I feel like I can't deal with whatever's going on in my life. He helps bring me back. And he did help me be grounded, and he helped me become more peaceful. But I knew there was something else there that I needed to deal with. So in my own way, I did all the things I know to do. I meditated, I went to God, I talked to my practitioner, but there was more. There was something there I wasn't dealing with. I knew that. So I finally signed myself up for PTSD counseling. I went to a counselor, and that was a very interesting experience because she basically told me there wasn't anything she could do for me. I had all the skills that she was going to teach me. So she just said she couldn't help me, but she recommended something else for me. And so even though I couldn't, I had all those skills, I had the tools, I had the knowledge, I had the faith, but I couldn't seem to know that truth for myself. I couldn't find that truth with a capital T. I couldn't get in touch with that secret power, that divinity within me, that place that makes me that person who I am. And I shared all this with a therapist. And so she referred me to a specialist in something called eye movement direct therapy, which is something I had actually briefly heard about. And so I said, okay, well, I'm willing at this point to try anything. So in the course of that therapy, what they do is they take you back to the scene of whatever it was that happened. In this case, it was the scene of my crash. It was very traumatic, but the therapist was very gentle and he allowed me time to process the whole thing. And it turned out my trauma was related not only to the accident, but to my husband's death and another traumatic event that took place when I was 7 years old and resulted in a feeling of abandonment and being alone. And that's another story for another day. But the thing that came out of this session was, again, that I was feeling that sense of abandonment and that sense of being alone in the car and in that previous incident when I was 7 years old. I was saying, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I was alone and I didn't want to go. And I think that was because both times I was on the edge of passing over and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to let go. I had more to do. I had more life to live. And when I was in that car, not knowing, well, I didn't know I was actually kind of out. All of a sudden, my husband who passed away was there, holding my hand and telling me that I was not alone and everything was okay. Which brings me to the part about grief and loss. Part of my PTSD that I'm experiencing has to do with the death of my husband. His death was sudden. I wasn't prepared, not that we're ever prepared, but I certainly wasn't ready for him to die. And I remember afterwards, my mind was in a fog. I couldn't make even the most simple decisions. My biggest fear was that someone would find me naked in my closet because I couldn't decide what to wear. I couldn't get dressed. I couldn't move. Thankfully, my neighbors across the street fed me, poked me, prodded me, and basically took care of me in those first few long weeks when life didn't seem to have purpose. And I really didn't want to go on. I think the only thing that kept me from joining my husband was my love and attachment to my children and grandchildren, my friends, and my deep down belief in God. I knew that God was always right there. I just couldn't always connect with him. But I did still talk to him. I even yelled at him. I think I even cussed a bit. And I certainly yelled at my husband. And no, lightning didn't come down and strike me because I was cursing at God. He listened. I didn't know he was listening, but he listened. He sent me angels. He sent me those angels in the form of my friends across the street. He sent me those angels in the form of friends who came to sit with me the first few days after his death, and of my son who came to be with me while I attended to some details that needed to be attended to. He listened. I didn't know it, but he was right there. Now, at the time, I hadn't been introduced to science of mind, and I didn't have the tools I had now. But I still knew somehow deep within me, that God was there. I knew that he was always with me. And I knew somehow that I would get through this. I wasn't sure how. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do. But I did know that somehow I would get through it. When I finally woke up out of that fog that had surrounded me, God provided me with a lot of opportunities. I found a great counselor, a great grief counselor, and began to address some of my feelings, but I still didn't feel whole and complete. I still felt like there was something missing. Over the course of the next few years, I discovered science of mind. Now, I had always believed in the concepts of science of mind. I just had never had them presented to me in a formal kind of way. I had never really found a group that believed exactly as I, well, not exactly, but believed as I did. But once I found this group, um, that's when I really began to grow. And I found a spiritual, a science of mind minister practitioner that specialized in grief counseling. And that's when things really became together, began to came began to come together for me. Um, she had written a book called The Broken Open Heart, which I have packed away somewhere and need to find, but it said everything that I was feeling. And she also gave me a chart of grief. Now, I know you've probably all heard about the stages of grief, and this did have the stages of grief on it, but they're typically taught to us as steps. These are the steps that you will go through, when you're quote, quote, recovering from grief. Well, this chart had all the steps, but they weren't in a line. It was like a spiral that kind of went up and back and up and back, because anyone who's ever been through grief, loss, or trauma knows the path toward the light is not a straight path. There are many twists and turns and back steps. They're not failures. It's just the natural progression of grief and mourning. Notice I didn't say the path to recovery, because I don't think that you ever recover or truly get over, as they say, loss or grief. But you do incorporate it into your own being. It becomes a very integral part of who you are, no matter what the grief or loss is. But in order to do that, you have to let yourself experience it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to scream. It's okay to get mad. It's even okay to get mad at God. Whatever you need to do, however you need to grieve, it's okay, as long as you don't hurt yourself or anyone else. You have to feel it. You have to be with it. You have to sit with it. And as my favorite preschool song says, you can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. The only way out is through. So if you're going through any of this, allow yourself to go through it. Allow yourself to feel it. If you've lost touch with that divinity that's deep in your heart, talk to somebody, share with your friends, get a counselor, find a practitioner. You don't have to go through it yourself. Get help in finding it. God is always with you, right where you are. You may not always know it. You may not always feel like it. But it is true. That divinity, that secret power, that place within inside you, deep inside your heart, it's always there. Yes, for a time, I lost touch with myself. Do I still do that on occasion? Yeah, I'm human. I forget who I am. I forget that power's in there. But I, at this point, have enough. That belief is that strong that I know it's there. And as we said in the meditation, sometimes it's just a spark. Sometimes there's darkness around it, but it's always there. And I have to say that since I had this life-changing event, I really don't like to refer to it as an accident, because I don't believe there are accidents. I don't believe I brought this on myself, but I don't believe there are accidents. From this event, I have learned so much. I've experienced things I never would have even known existed, new and different therapies, new and different ways of looking and handling things, and new ways of getting in touch with that power within. I've been blessed with skilled doctors and wonderful friends and family who've helped me navigate the way to this new life. I've always had a faith in God, but I haven't always had the faith of God. And I can't say that I always do. I can't say that my faith has never waned or that there haven't been times when I've questioned God. But I've always come back to the center, that place where my divinity lies, that place where I live, that heart of who I am. It is who I am, no matter what, that place within me. I know deep within, I am a beloved child of God, in whom he is well pleased. I know that, I feel it, I believe it. Grief, loss, and trauma have a profound effect on your life and on the person that you thought yourself to be. They cause you to examine your life as it was, as it is, and as it might be. The truth is that this moment, right here, right now, is all you have. What will you do with it? What will you make of your life? It's up to you. But as Melissa Filippi said in the opening song, if I believe, I can. You can take charge of your life. You can use that secret power to create the life that God intended for you to have, and it's just waiting for you to discover. And you can come home to your true self. That self with a capital T, true. With God, all things are possible. And I'll leave you with some modified words of the next song and an affirmation. Now that I see the God in me, I know who I really am. I feel the power inside of me. Now I stand in the wonder that the mirror couldn't see. I have the power inside of me. It's all inside of me. So your affirmation is, today is the day I stop looking for answers outside myself and turn to that divinity within. The one love, the one life, the one power that is in, around, and through me. I allow that power to flow through me, to express itself as me, and I allow myself to be all that I can be. I shine my light into the world knowing that today I make a difference. I make a difference in my life and in the lives of all living beings on this planet. I let my light shine. And so it is.